The solution will, in my view, will either be civil disobedience when these totalitarian pushes go too far, because people will have enough of this. That's number one. Or second, just have the options that are available. Today, I think that pushing towards that will only exacerbate other solutions that will push people to opt out of the traditional banking systems, such as blockchain, to have more anonymity and to have more, private property, so that they do not participate in the system. Look, I think the entire monetary system is in a bubble and in a terminal phase. Okay, when you look at the bubbles across history, you've seen the most recent ones were the tech bubble, then the mortgage bubble. I think we've reached the absurd point of which it is a money bubble, and in which the entire system is at risk. So I think it is an act of desperation to try to salvage that type of system with more mistakes. Is the rejection of the narratives of all governments. Either way, the side of peace today is to reject government authority and to put the government back in its place, not as a governing body, but as a civil servant to service the people, not to indoctrinate, not to use its civilians as cannon. I do believe that these people who do not pay taxes, right, which already says something. I actually agree with them. I think they should not pay taxes, but I think everybody else should also not pay taxes. It just places you in a system where different people have different rights, and that's not okay. You have to turn these things into an opportunity. If you know that some things are wrong, do you find a way to bet on it? And our bet is that stablecoins backed by USD will fail. Okay, that is our bet. Our bet is that some of the Bitcoin holders or the shitcoin holders will be tired of playing the volatility game, and will want to find a refuge that is back to the principles that they believe in, right? That's our bet. And our bet, most of all, is that fiat currencies will continue to be debased at a faster and faster pace. So I think it's still early, because, like you say, you're either subject today to hyperinflation, or you're subject to hyperinflation in slow motion. But either way, you will be suffering from this.
I'm your host, Fazan Irani. Let's connect the dots. Our guest today is Thierry Aris-Ruiz, the founder of Agao.io, the peer-to-peer electronic money system backed by silver and gold in Switzerland. Thierry has worked for major trading houses and financial institutions such as Trafigura, Lukoil, Scotia Capital, ICAP, and Credit Suisse. He's an expert speaker for topics ranging from commodity trading to finance, frontier technology, AI, and blockchain. Welcome, Thierry. It's a pleasure to have you on our show today.
Thank you, Farzin, for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thierry, you're a global speaker in finance and money and all those things related, so I thought I'll have you on the show. So before we start, we just like the audience to get to know you a bit better. So in your own words, could you tell us a bit about your background and how you got started in the financial markets?
So I want to start introducing myself as Mexican and Belgian, because I had the privilege to be born on the west coast of Mexico, Manzanillo, which is I think as of 2025 is the most dangerous place in the world. But It is a place where there is a commercial port, so it is more of a commercial port, less of a tourist port, and there's a lot of commodities going there, among other things, unfortunately. But um, I think of myself now as an entrepreneur, but I started my career more in the trading field, first in commodities and derivatives, and then in physical commodities, really kind of more of a merchant job. So my passion has always been economics. And when you look at economics very basically from the beginning, uh, starting from the Wealth of Nation from Adam Smith, you will quickly realize that there's something that is kind of an aberration of history today, um, relative to the money system. And money has always been gold and silver since the beginning of times, pretty much in society. Without uh, mm, necessarily communicating with each other, all ancient civilizations have come to that conclusion. Money, for plenty of reasons I'm not going to go into. But there's been this aberration on history since 1971, where we detached from the gold standard. And so, as I was building my career in commodities, I had also occasions into looking at barter, meaning how can you trade commodities without using paper or fiat money, but rather goods for other goods. Gold is a natural form that of money that just surges over and over again. And so when the commodity trading boom of Zug was already established, I saw coming also what we call now the crypto valley, which is the new technology of blockchain, something that I had looked at but kind of ignored since 2010. And then in 2017, I really went all in because I felt like we were making the same mistakes again. And today, I think there is still a lot of realizations to be made when it comes to what is money, why, and also the bad practices that were done in the financial world that are now being done in this new crypto environment. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that theory. Um, Obviously, I believe this is going to be a period where people are going to be writing books about, because 95% of the population doesn't understand money or currency or where it comes from. So, to set the scene for our audience today to have this conversation in depth, would you like to start with your understanding of money and why fiat itself is a Ponzi scheme? Let me just come out and say it, a whole Ponzi scheme that is fiat.
Yeah. I mean, let's call it like it is, right? You can call it a Ponzi scheme or a complete mirage, because really it's even worse than a Ponzi scheme in the sense that um, it's really backed by nothing but promises. And I remember my dad when he used to say, um, when it comes to politicians, their promises only engage the ones who receive them. And what we have there is essentially a dollar or a money system that is cross dollar. Essentially, all FX brings back to dollar. Uh, that is not backed by gold, but that is backed by promises, by money that can be printed infinitely, and we've seen it time and time again, including during COVID, trillions of dollars just being printed. Um, so when you hear the news and people, very little people now talk about austerity, because most of people know now that everything is basically a charade. So the truth is that I think in 2009, when Satoshi issued his Bitcoin paper, I think that was a private sector initiative, if you want, into pointing out what was wrong with money. And I think this Bitcoin has done a very good job in kind of like questioning in the consciousness of people what money is. Uh, so to me, Bitcoin is a better form of fiat, and I think when you look at the Bitcoin paper and Satoshi Nakamoto, I think um, these are people that are kind of autistic, huh? And they really are being extremely careful about the words. The 10 pager of the Bitcoin paper, extremely meticulous in the words it's being used. And the title is the peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Now let's remember that cash is a form of payment, but it is not an electronic peer-to-peer money system, and for good reason. The precursor of Bitcoin, uh, some of them, uh, like BitGold or eGold, um, they were not backed by gold either, and I think um, that precision of using the right word for the right thing is necessary. I think Bitcoin is the peer-to-peer electronic cash system, and it's a better form of cash because it is limited in its issuance. There is a limited supply, and that's why it's so much better than any other forms of cash or any other form of fiat money that we see. Fiat, by definition, backed by nothing, meaning backed by confidence. And I think Bitcoin has built that confidence, that network, that consensus to be a competing form of cash. But it's still quite not money. Now, we can debate a long time about which one is better and which one it's not. And I don't think this is the point of this podcast. I think the point is to recognize that, as Hayek would put it, the more competing forms of monies there is, the better the customer is off. In this case, the people who use that money. And so there is enough room so that a new emergent form of money can come, be it a money backed by an asset, be it a money backed by purely electronic confidence, uh, and to have more and more of those compete. Because the more there's competition, the more you can remove that monopoly of money from government, and the more you can be having better and better forms of money as times advances. At Agao, we believe that if there was to be a monetary reset, the entire world would be better off if this monetary reset would go naturally back to what it's always been, where the balance of trades of nations over thousands of years have accumulated to a certain extent um, money in the form of gold, rather than having a massive wealth transfer to a bunch of nerds of 2009 who had the luck to just mine Bitcoin at the right time. So um, I think we're seeing an awakening of, at the very least, the realization that fiat money is not a good idea, because inflation has definitely eroded the wealth of nations. And we also are in a very interesting time, like you say, because we are now facing also a questioning of the dollar, and a questioning of the power of the United States by challengers like the BRICS, like China. And there's a very good book about it from Ray Dalio. If you look it up, the Changing World Order, I think it makes actually the case for gold as a monetary reset tool. Bitcoin obviously is there, but I think it has been captured and sequestrated, if you want, by the institutions like BlackRock, both from the issuance perspective, knowing that the seven largest miners are majority owned by BlackRock, and the ETF on the other side, meaning those who capture those bitcoins. It's also owned by now traditional financial institutions in a very, very centralized way. So if you were to ask me what the electronic cash is today, I am more of a Monero proponent in that sense, because I think you can be Darwinian about about Bitcoin, the same way the Bitcoin maximalists are Darwinian about gold, saying that it is a better form of money. I think if you apply the same exact principles and same reasoning to Bitcoin, you now have already today better forms in a technical way of electronic cash than Bitcoin, and so therefore it is a network of things. My belief is that unfortunately today, most of the people are in Bitcoin because of the price go up and the pump, and less because of the principles. And if that is true, then another sort of maximalist will emerge, be it Dogecoin, Pepe coin, or any other type of degenerate coin. But I think if you want to be serious as of today about uh, the preservation of wealth, which is what the family offices do here in Switzerland, it is about using gold as money, and it is about essentially having that standard that has been kind of like proven through history.
Yeah, thanks for that. I just want to comment on a couple of things you mentioned out there. The whole fiat currency is based on confidence and the tip of a gun, because or threat of putting you in jail, because if you don't pay your taxes, you go to jail. So the whole point is it's legal tender and it's cash. Now, if you don't pay your taxes, people will quickly find out why you have to use the money, the fiat currency that the government tells you you have to use, right? So it's forced upon people. Obviously, after the global financial crisis comes Bitcoin, which is seen as, oh, we have a limited supply, which was the initial selling point, that it's limited supply because the government can create as much paper as they want and debase your hard work, which is what the average person gets paid in. But after that, I've just realized, okay, at least the government has the ability to tax you. Bitcoin doesn't have anything backing it. Realistically, there's nothing there other than algorithms, and there's a limited supply. And as you just mentioned, that horse is now bolted, because initially people got into Bitcoin because of privacy and not everyone knowing how to use it. But that case is out with the ETFs and all of that. Do you think it's just a pump and dump scheme now? Because I think they're letting the price run a little bit to suck in the last few people in before they let it go. Because I can't see Bitcoin with a competing fiat currency when they come out with CBDCs. Do you think they will let it exist, coexist?
Look, I am, as you may know, I am part of several task forces that actually also deal with CBDC projects via the UNITU. I'm a private sector expert there, and I can see what is going on. And the most interesting part for government and central banks is usually the programmable form of money. Um, Now you already see also another factor to complete what you mentioned, which is digital ID, which and like you say, today, unfortunately, you are more at risk if you do not pay the forcible taxation, because it's not voluntary taxation for the most part of the population, than if you actually commit a serious crime, like sexual assault or anything. Um, Not paying your taxes is the most enforced crime that is in the book. You don't mess with the government finances or these sort of things. So definitely, I think the sense of priorities in societies are misplaced. Now, it is a Ponzi scheme in a sense that um, definitely money. I mean, I think we all agree now is running its course. Okay, but there is tools like digital ideas and others that totalitarian regimes will nevertheless try to enforce this. My worry about Bitcoin is that the blockchain component in Bitcoin might be more of a chain of slavery than a chain of freedom, if you know what I mean. Today, the lack of privacy in the blockchain as it was designed and as it is now, and a lot of people have conspiracies about the true origins of Bitcoin, such as the NSA and
You
so
can
on.
count me in that. It's not a conspiracy. I've read the papers, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Um, so this is something people should be worried about. I think the principles of Bitcoin and the way it was marketed is correct. And I think those are the ones that people should retain rather than the bad things of Bitcoin, which is the lack of privacy and the let's put it this way, uh, and the fanatism that there is about. Let's not be fanatic about anything, and then try to keep her mind open. The third point I want to touch on is the problems today with the entire crypto industry, where you actually have seen things like Monero completely discarded because they are branded as only for criminals. And I want to remind people that this is what the Bitcoiners were treated as some time ago.
Exactly.
So that's number one. Number two is some people cheer the institutionalization of the crypto industry, which is part of the mass adoption, and I understand that. But I think it's also the big danger because it seems to me that the system is not being decentralized enough as much as it is being captured by the centralized organization. And this is something to be worried about. The reason why I'm saying this is it is kind of ironic that the biggest value today in the crypto industries are being captured by stablecoin issuers, and those stablecoin issuers, $1 billion of companies, are essentially doing racks on racks on racks on Ponzi schemes. So first of all, the principle of Bitcoin was to depart from fiat, and the largest coins and the largest value created today are in fiat currencies. So there is a question to be made. The dollarization of the world is being increased because of these USD-backed stablecoins. The controls are being increased. All of the backing of those regulated stablecoins are actually all of the backing is in the financial system, and they are in a financial system deposited in a banking system. So we're not anywhere near departing the banking system. If anything, we are a derivative, if not first, a second or third derivative of the banking system, because those coins are backed by for not only cash deposits, but even worse, which is government debt. And government debt that is now being imposed in the case of Tether. I think the last Tether issued is mainly U.S. government debt, and it's basically a way to finance the shortfall of the world buying less of American debt, and making up for it via stablecoins. What will happen? Question: what will happen when the U.S. defaults de facto? And de facto default is not only because you default on part of your debt, but simply put, you just printed it away. That's one. Question: what would happen if a bank fails, and that bank actually holds all of the backings of those stable coins, because you still have contagion risk. If anything, you have more of an interdependency of the banking system today. uh, what will happen if there is a split between the East and the West, where people will not be allowed to use USD backed anywhere? If today you want to trade with enemies of the US, using a USD backed stablecoin is technically illegal. So you can be confiscated. Now we're going back to the digital ID. So my proposition is to look at all of these questions and come to the natural conclusion that gold is the only form of non-government money that has been proven. Uh, Bitcoin can contend, but it's not stable enough. I wouldn't put my rent on Bitcoin. If you're a corporation, it would not be sound to have so much volatility into your treasury management services. And finally, what is the protocol that you can use so that you can have a chance to have real privacy in money? Now at AGAO, we are studying different protocols, and we will be launching in different protocols so that you can choose and evolve as the protocols evolve as well. But those are the questions that I think people need to ask themselves, because otherwise, history repeats, and you will always have um, a, essentially a choice between fascism or totalitarianism. And both of them have something in common, which is total control. Um, and so you don't want to pick sides, government A or government B, the Chinese or the Americans. I am a proponent of freedom, of economic freedom, of social freedom. And I think if you believe in those, I think that is the narrative that should be pushed forward.
Yeah, the governments are the problem as I see. Sorry, the governments and the central banks. As you said, you made a few good points in there. You mentioned Monero. I know Monero is one of the cryptocurrencies that has the maximum privacy. And if I'm not mistaken, was set up by McAfee and stuff like that. I'm not sure too deep into that, but that's one of the ones that give you the most privacy. And that's why they said Monero is not something we want to discuss, and only the bad actors might be using it or the terrorists. And you got a good point in there. I just want to go a bit deeper onto the stablecoin thing because we talked about fiat currency, and you've already mentioned that stable coins are a Ponzi scheme on top of a Ponzi scheme because they have to be backed one by one by the US dollar treasuries. And the whole point is, so you just take, let's say, $1 million out of your bank account and you get $1 million in stable coin. At least in your bank account, you might have been earning 2.5, 3% interest. Now you just give $1 million to Tether, whoever. They go buy the treasury, they earn the interest. You're not even earning the interest now. And if anything, your money could be confiscated. I've heard some commentators, without naming them, they're saying just like FTX was found out to be a Ponzi scheme, at some stage we might even find one of these. He's not naming anyone and he's not saying it might be intentional, but who knows for sure whether they're actually going out and buying all the treasuries that they say they're buying. You have any thoughts on that? Because not all of them, but there might be one or
Look, you don't have to prove it. It is known. Let's start from the beginning. When you take a paper bill from that is printed in physical form, this paper bill used to be backed by gold and now is backed by nothing. In the banking system, this paper bill is a liability for the central bank. You are so when you take that paper and you deposit, so this is the best you can do today is backed by nothing, just confidence in a paper bill. That's the best you can do today. When you take that paper bill and you deposit it in a bank, you are now a creditor of the bank. Your money is not yours anymore. It belongs now to the bank, and the bank is now the creditor of the central bank. So already there, the banking system fails you because there is fractional reserve banking. They do not own one to one. They lend this money times and times again. In fact, uh, some of some of the times, the reserve ratio, I think it used to be 8%. Now it's close to zero.
yeah. In the US, they dropped it to almost zero during COVID, didn't they?
Exactly. So it's basically printing to infinity. Okay. So already, and that's the point today. Even when your deposit in the bank is there, most of the times the banks or these stablecoin issuers, where you give them the dollar, they take that dollar and invest it in US treasuries, which is basically a debt instrument that is guaranteed by the government. Uh, my opinion, if there's anybody you should not trust with your money, uh, is the government. And I think everybody would agree with that. Yet, this is the system we're living in. Okay. So you're basically having the company's risk at the stablecoin issuers level. You have the systemic banking risk at the banking level because you have bail-ins and all sorts of capital adequacy ratios. Today, you have more than 160 billion, if I'm not mistaken, of unmaterialized losses in the balance sheets of banks who hold those treasuries with higher interest rates, for which, if they were to market them to market, they would be busts. And this is the case of all banks. And it is dangerous to say this because it can create crisis. I'm not. This is information. This is not I'm not trying to push for bank runs. What I'm trying to say is informing people, and CEOs of banks know this. The third thing is those instruments are held to maturity in order not to be crystallized. But we've seen this with Silicon Valley Bank, where you had withdrawals. Any bank is broke if there was to run on a bank. That's why running on banks is forbidden, and they can close at any time and not open anytime. And the fourth thing is, it is now a time in history where, on top of that, you have a lot of politicization of money. So you have you have made the dollar political. You cannot use the dollar legally anywhere. If you are using the dollar with an enemy of the United States, and we don't know when is the next enemy going to be. It could be China, it could be India, it could be one of the major trade partners of your country. Um, and it goes both ways. It goes for China, it goes for the United States. But they've politicized money. They've politicized the banking system because the SWIFT now, who used to be neutral, has also cut off certain countries from their system. It started with Iran and Iraq, but it expanded to Russia, and it could be any other. Now, um, we also see, like I said, the digital ID, which I think there should be massive pushback as of today, as of this podcast, to remove this concept of tying up uh, your identity to a government. The government has no right in your privacy, in your social freedom, and I don't think it should have any regards into your economic freedom. Of course, every country has their laws, and if you're breaking those laws, you should be held accountable. But that doesn't mean that we should go into a totalitarian regime where essentially everything is monitored, because that is a dystopia in my view. And I think if there is enough of a community that starts um, lobbying by voting with their foot, by voting with their wallet, and by voting with their actions, uh, some politicians out there, as of now, will decide to run on the program to make a democracy a direct democracy, and to abolish some of the freedom overreach that the government has done.
This is something you mentioned in there, my digital ID. Obviously, in the UK, the Prime Minister Keir Starmer comes on and he says you cannot have a job unless you have a digital ID. You said something about travel as well. We have passports for travel. We already have driver's licenses. Most citizens already have tax file numbers for their countries. So it doesn't even meet the common sense test anymore. But they're still so authoritarian that they keep pushing the whole digital ID. And I've mentioned this when I get interviewed quite often: problem, reaction, solution. They create the problem, they open the borders, they get people in, then they see the public reaction, and they're like, oh, there's too many immigrants in our country. And the solution is a digital ID, which I think was it Tony Blair, and he's been talking about this since the 2000s to try and get a digital ID in the UK. And obviously, while Keir Starmer is already unpopular, he's the one who tries and pushes this. I remember during COVID, you couldn't go out and have a coffee or get a haircut or even meet your friends if you didn't have the vaccine passport, which is a digital ID, but for vaccines. And now they're going down there. Why do you think at least 85 or 90% of the population doesn't get it? That the digital ID is no good. It has no use cases, but they're still gobbling them up for convenience. It's always sold as convenience.
Look, I am also very puzzled, because you look at what happened in Canada during COVID, or so many other places where they could literally cut you off of the payment system based on whether or not you were vaccinated. Uh, so it is really a dystopian idea, like you said. Uh, mm, Problem, reaction, solution. I think a lot of people are awakening to this, because essentially it doesn't matter what the problem is. The agenda is like, because of X, Y, Z, we need to have digital ID. I I don't know if most of people are still brainwashed or are NPCs. Uh, I don't know if you need to go into the fringe conspiracy theories where the vaccinated people are now like under control of 5G. I don't think this is. I think the only thing one needs to look at is, at the very least, we need to establish um, the respect of individual freedoms. If you want to have digital ID, fair enough, go ahead and do it. But you shouldn't be forced and coerced into having the digital ID, because, you know, I think it was in a movie when you have the 10th man rule, where you always have to have one person not to follow the same ideas, just in case everybody else is wrong. And if you put everybody in the same basket and there is no exception, when digital ID goes wrong, when God knows the AI Skynet takes over, what are we gonna do? Um, it doesn't seem like a very prudent thing to me. Um, I am hopeful that there will be countries, particularly in the South, who will refuse these sort of things. And then, naturally speaking, some of these countries who do the right things will thrive more than others because um, economic and social liberty is always the ones that win. So, so long as not all of the world does that, and so long as there is freedom in leaving, um, because that's the big problem with North Korea is that you can't leave. So, we're getting there. Um, the the availability for people to travel and to vote with their feet. I'm not against migration myself. I am an immigrant here in Switzerland, uh, but I am against welfare, meaning that if you move somewhere, you don't have to be supported in any shape or form, but yourself. Um, but that's a little bit more of a political topic. The bottom line is uh, freedom in all of its aspects should be preserved and should be looked at. And I feel today that this is the danger. We've seen it with COVID. I think a lot of people have waken up, but apparently not enough because this trend of digital ID, and we see it happening at the same time. We have a vote here in Switzerland. We had the imposition of it without asking any mandate. Who gave the mandate to the Prime Minister of England to establish this? Nobody's voted for it. And I'm pretty sure that if you were to ask most people, uh, giving them their consent and their informed consent, uh, they would refuse. COVID was not an informed consent, and that's a tragedy. And I feel like we're doing this again.
Yeah, exactly why I brought up COVID. It wasn't informed consent, and if you did not take the magic shot or whatever, then you couldn't work or you lost friends. And I know because I'm a New Zealand citizen, and what happened in New Zealand and countries like Australia, I've heard stories where people had to lose jobs. Some people actually lost their houses because they couldn't afford to pay their mortgage because they lost their jobs. So it's like governments get really authoritarian. They tried this a few years back, and now with the digital ID, and as you said, nobody's asked for it, but their overlords, whoever it is, whether it's the World Economic Forum or whether it's some other organization driving policy or the UN or whatever, they just seem to follow. And more so in the West, I was saying, because the economic system is collapsing. But just recently, in the space of a month, Thailand and Vietnam have both shut down their citizens' bank accounts. I think 86 million bank accounts, was it in Thailand or Vietnam, where you have to submit your digital ID. And last year I brought it up, it happened in Bahrain as well. So we can see this happening in the East and the West, just like it happened in COVID. You could just see most countries did the exact same brain dead policies. So there's a bigger global agenda behind all of this, isn't it?
Absolutely. So Farzin, what is the solution? Okay. The solution is to opt out. Okay. The solution will, in my view, will either be civil disobedience when these totalitarian pushes go too far because people will have enough of this. That's number one. Or second, just have the options that are available. Today, I think that pushing towards that will only exacerbate other solutions that will push people to opt out of the traditional banking systems, such as blockchain, to have more anonymity and to have more, private property, so that they do not participate in the system. So at the end of the day, I think more solutions like mine will be a signal to prove that people do not want political money, that people want real money that preserves its value over centuries and millennia, and that in which governments have no say in it. Um, the more uh, movements can prove this, and I think Bitcoin and the crypto industry, the native one, is pushing towards that. I believe in the force of private sector. I believe in the force of human initiative to push back with solutions that will prove that the more you push towards a centralized totalitarian regime, the more people will reject the type of money that they're being offered, the more people will reject the type of financial services that they're offered, and the more they will reject the fake democracy that they're offered. And so eventually, truth will prevail. That is the a positive and optimistic message, but it doesn't come for free. It comes at a cost. People need to do something, even if it's a little bit. Sharing messages like this one, enabling others to also question themselves rather than just becoming completely brainwashed by whatever algorithms we are provided with.
Yep. The question you said, people are exiting, right? But also it's boil the frog analogy. People don't notice slow creep, but they notice sudden change. So obviously, first it was the COVID, and then they started getting immigrants in, and now it's a digital ID in one place or the other, and they're slowly moving towards this. But I agree totally with you that humans take longer to gain confidence in something, which is Bitcoin's taken some while for people to, but we lose confidence very quickly, which will be what I see in governments. And I think we're coming close to that point, especially in Europe, because Europe people can see that the politicians are just doing numbnut stuff, which is they're cutting off the gas, they're trying to go to solar and wind, which means the inflation is going up. But I think Europe is, well, Europe and Japan are the two basket cases, because I think Europe is where they've got the problem. I think France and UK really literally said they might need IMF bailouts not that long off. And I think they're the ones who are pushing. I think they had mentioned, the central bank had mentioned they're trying to get CBDC by October. Now, I don't know if they can get it by October because we're almost stepping into October. So let's say if they get it by December or January next year, I see that doing that because of capital controls, because the war starts in Europe. As you said, people can work with their feet, but hey, we've seen during World War II, you ask for papers, which is digital ID. Then you can also, at least back in those days, people who had gold could trade in gold and get across the borders. But if it's digital ID and digital money, you won't even be able to transfer money outside of your banks out there. And I think Ursula one day, or I think the central bank ECB head had said, hey, we should take maybe some people's savings and invest in defense stocks. So they want to literally confiscate people's money, and that'll be much easier once you have CBDC. What is you're in Switzerland, and Switzerland was one of the bastion hopes of democracy, because you guys already have direct democracy, but that's changing very quickly, even in Switzerland, as I can see. Because Switzerland was neutral during World War II, but now they're doing certain things with Basel and all of that stuff. What are your views on where Europe's heading? Do you think they're purposely looking for war just because they know the system's collapsing and the currency will collapse?
Look, I think the entire monetary system is in a bubble and in a terminal phase. Okay, when you look at the bubbles across history, you've seen the most recent ones were the tech bubble, then the mortgage bubble. I think we've reached the absurd point of which it is a money bubble, and in which the entire system is at risk. So I think it is an act of desperation to try to salvage that type um, of system with more mistakes like the ones you mentioned, which is essentially bails-ins and essentially, you know, the the capture of IDs and the capture of potentially all of the monies that is there. This is really what it is. At the same time, you have political tensions, and the issue here is that um, and history repeats, in a case of tensions and war, you usually have you look at back at World War II and the aftermath. um, when you see the Cold War, for the most part, the Allies were basically in a totalitarian regime uh, against the communist bloc, and the communist bloc was also a totalitarian regime. It was not really that far apart. You were all either under the totalitarian regime of the East or the West, and it feels to me that this is what is happening again. Um, the only hope is to be non-aligned to this. Like you said, Switzerland was the bastion of freedom, was the the little island enclave in the middle, and this is also why I am here on the first place. um, I think looking around, I think there is still hope that some of the mistakes, like you just mentioned, of being a little bit more political, um, and taking sides, this was clearly a mistake. I think from a Swiss perspective, a lot of it is being pushed, to be honest, by the pressure of the European Union and others. It's not something that comes from within; it's something that comes from outside. And so hopefully a lot of uh, the following the subsequent votes in this country will go to towards towards being back to what makes Switzerland great, which is neutrality and non-intervention in this form. Yeah, I think there is hope there, but you always will have certain countries. I think in Asia, um, Singapore has taken some of the recipes of success from Switzerland to also do its own bidding, uh, but it is more of a strict regime and less of a direct democracy. So look, I think you we should not lose hope, because just the same way as Bitcoin has kind of like um, uh, awakened a lot of people into asking what is money, and take it from there. I think decentralized democracy could be the next topic, and I think if there is too much overreach, that type of ideas will naturally emerge, um, and that's where I have hope. Meaning, people will lobby and push for decentralized democracy, and so long as people opt out of the narratives. I feel today the narrative is too polarizing. It is too um, pick a side. Are you a pro East? Are you pro West? Are you a political Zionist, or are you anti political Zionism? I don't think that's the solution. I think that's just polarizing people. The solution should be like, hey, let's not listen to any of those camps. Let's not participate to any of those wars where you murder your brother. Okay, it's not okay. We are all human beings. Okay, and we do not need to pick sides. The side we need to pick is the side of. I know it sounds corny, but it really is the side of collaboration, the side of peace, and the side of peace today is the rejection of the narratives of all governments. Either way, the side of peace today is to reject government authority and to put the government back in its place, not as a governing body, but as a civil servant to service the people, not to indoctrinate, not to use its civilians as cannon. um, I think that is something that people need to awaken. There is no social media big trend of people asking for peace. Everybody's speaking aside. Everybody's being manipulated. Today, we need to step out of the spell and look at what is correct. And what is correct is more trade and use trade as a form of peace. Okay, not politics, and use freedom to not listen to any narratives, but to treat each other as human beings, regardless of religion or where we come from or what we've been told to believe, to judge people by their character and to only believe what our own intuition and eyes can see. That is the side that we need to pick. And that means rejecting narratives, rejecting authoritative statements, and rejecting to having to pick a side or pick a camp. I do not think that's a healthy thing. That only leads to polarization and more conflict.
You're right, Theory, but the whole but the whole thing is the power is about know exactly what they have to do, which is always divide and rule. Whether it's on your skin color, whether it's on your religion, whether it's on your citizenship, whether it's even on your social status, because you mentioned that book from Ray Dalio, and he said it's gotten to a stage where I was just talking to a guest the other day, and I think 8% of Americans own about 80% of the wealth in the USA. So whether they're dividing us on social status or the color of your skin or whatever it is, on your political theories, they're dividing us because if we figured out that the government was the problem, the government was the agitator, the government is the one turning us against each other, then they have a problem on their hands. And as I've said when I've been interviewed multiple times, and I said the whole point is they know exactly what they're doing, and they're doing it because the system's coming to an end. So they will get more authoritarian because as anyone's back is against the wall, they push a little bit harder, and government's backs are against the wall. And I think in the next 5 or 6 years, the whole facade of democracy has been going to be taken down from all countries, whether it's West or East. We can see that what's happening and just happened in Nepal recently, where the youth got angry and burned down their parliament, and it happened in Sri Lanka last year. It starts at the fringes, as I've mentioned, and some people are saying there might be even civil war coming to the US, which I've mentioned once before as well, because they've divided the people so much. So the whole point is they know what they're doing. And I've actually heard the solution of this is like, let's say, for example, in the UK, people are saying we don't want digital ID, but the Prime Minister is still pushing digital ID. At some stage, they were hoping to break down the democracy. This is what I've heard, and my research has shown. And the United Nations wants to come in as a one world government to say, we don't need different politicians. We need unity, and we need a one world government with a one world CBDC. What are your thoughts on that? Conspiracy, or it could be possible?
I think there's always fanatics and technocrats who most of the times do not even have the authority to speak because um, I mean one thing you have to know is my ex-wife is a United Nations diplomat, and I have been there several times. Uh, that makes a lot of conversations, but um, in a nutshell, I have I have I do believe that these people who do not pay taxes, right, which already says something. I actually agree with them. I think they should not pay taxes, but I think everybody else should also not pay taxes. Um, it just places you in a system where different people have different rights, and that's not okay. So already that on principle is not okay. Second, um, the hope there is that I'm pretty confident that most of these people are completely incapable of doing anything whatsoever. They're so incompetent. They've never worked a single day in their life that they're literally, for the most part, just brassing hot air and talking about their most of it stupid ideas, and not even getting anywhere with it. So that's where the hope is. It's embedding in their incompetence. Uh, on the other side, it is kind of the private sectors and the civil individual initiatives to that's our job, to actually provide with solutions, provide with alternative solutions to with alternative markets for which the value is so appealing that more people have the ability to opt out of the old system and get opt into the new system. And so eventually building new systems so that the new systems can win. Um, and you always have, I believe, pockets of propositions like that. And this is the only hope we have, because at the end of the day, we cannot wait for others to do it. I think it's about organizing in individually and as a group to provide alternative solutions to the things we don't like. The market will reward you. The bigger the problem you solve, the larger the reward you get. Either in monetary form or in love form. And there's a lot to be said that doing something that you're passionate about and doing something that actually makes might not reward you in monetary form, but rewards you in thanks, is a lot more valuable sometimes. So we don't take anything else with us materials to the next world. So it's about having integrity and principles, and live by them, and to never compromise those principles and that integrity that one has. Re-educating people into being people of good standing, and to not obeying to things that they do not agree with. Because quite frankly, I think this is what happened during COVID. A lot of people did it against their will, knowing that it was not they had a hinge. It was not a good idea. And so I think today we need to observe every time when something seems wrong, when hate towards somebody else is being pushed, or when bad ideas like digital ideas are being pushed, then just say no.
That's as simple as it is. Just say no and opt out of the system, as you said, which I know during COVID, quite a few people stood up, and somebody's got to stand up, right? Somebody's got to stand up to the evil bully, because if everyone goes along, then humanity is in trouble. But as you said, I've got a lot of hope because, again, when I've been interviewed in the past, I've said, okay, people say, how do you have so much hope in humanity? They did all these stupid things during COVID. And I said, yeah, because COVID, most people were still asleep and they didn't realize what was going on. But after some of their family members have taken the magic juice and have been impacted, their health has been impacted, and they can see people. And obviously, now that you're not in that hype of the whole everyone's dying around you, da da da, people are sitting back and going, I got the vaccine and I still got COVID. So was it really necessary? And the people who didn't take the vaccines are actually healthier than me and my family members. So I think that woke people up. And now with the digital ID, also you can see people in the UK and Europe waking up, or there's not riots in the street, but there's people, revolutionary cycles have happened in France quite a few times, and that's coming. And that's why they're also shutting out the politicians who want to stand up against the status quo. But we leave that whole politics and geopolitics aside. But I do have faith in humanity because they're waking up every day. The government's doing something stupid enough for the people to go, this just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense.
Every crisis is an opportunity. Every crisis is an opportunity for more and more people to wake up until we, and I think we are the majority today. We're the silent majority. That's what it is. We're the silent majority until the loud minority of warmongers and bad ideas uh, push it one notch too far. And I think that's where we're heading to.
I think, and that one notch too far is also the war, because the whole point is people don't want to go to war. I don't think a Russian wants to kill a European as much as a European wants to kill a Russian. It's the leaders who are instigating these wars. The average person just wants to work hard, pay his taxes if he has to, and just enjoy the weekend with his family and friends, right? But these
Nobody wants to pay taxes.
no,
Come on.
that's what I said. They don't really want to. They want to work, earn the money, and don't want to pay taxes. But if they have to, they will. But they just leave me the hell alone. And that's why people pay taxes, because they're like, leave me the hell alone. I just want to enjoy my life and my family and all of that stuff. But now comes war, and I think
Is it not ironic that we're paying the government for protection, and what they're doing instead is sending you to war?
exactly, because they create the problem and they need you to go to war. In fact, they're drafting people in European countries now. I've heard in Germany there's a draft coming up. France is saying hospitals might be full with injured people. Why are they hinting all of that? They know they have to go to war because their system is collapsing. And see, Thierry, my logic of this is, if the system collapses under their watch and there is no more pension funds, because as you mentioned, the money is being debased and the bonds are upside down, banks will go bust, all that stuff. If it happens without any other external distraction, we know the governments are the problem. They did this and the central banks did it. They will hang the bankers, they will hang the politicians or whatever, the guillotines that they used to do in France. So now they have to have a distraction. No, no, it was Russia's problem. It is Russia's inflation. It is Russia's aggressor, even though that has nothing to do with the actual truth, but it is Russia who's the enemy. You always need an external, as you said. There's divide and rule, and most people don't understand geopolitics because, hey, as you said, they're using these apps to amplify the hatred. They're using the apps to actually pit one against the other. But we walk away from that because I know you're actually, and just one last thing, if they have CBDCs, they can actually control you. So you won't be able to stand up against the government if you're on the
Nobody
CBDC.
wants Nobody wants CBDCs. Let's be honest. Nobody wants a CBDC. I've yet to encounter a single person, okay, a single person that is not in the political realm that would say, I think it is a good idea to have a CBDC. I have not seen a single one. Um, so so look, nobody wants it, and you have. I think it's about weakness. One has to stand its ground by saying, I am not participating into this, because the cost of participating is so much worse than the cost of not participating. And you've seen it time and time again. Those who will be buying into the narrative of the warmongers and want to participate in the war, will result in death. Okay. And those who will participate in the bad ideas like the COVID vaccines, they will be the ones impacted. Those who participate in the digital ID and to putting as much information out there, they're the ones who are going to be the most impacted. So once again, it is in the civil disobedience, and it is in the non-participation in those choices that you can save yourself. And if there is enough of people not participating, and if there is organization, and if there is coordination, which eventually it will, um, it will be just a logical thing that a better system will emerge, because the human nature is very strong. Um, now we have seen levels of brainwashing that are unprecedented, but I think we've seen also levels of awakening that are unprecedented. So um, we'll see what the AI technology is going to bring in, but hopefully it will also be able to use for good. It's like any tool; it can be used for good and it can be used for bad.
Yeah. That's just one more thing I want to add on that is you just mentioned do not comply with that, and there was a small percentage of it. But what happened during the Canadian truckers movement, I think, was even somebody who was not has nothing to do, was not even protesting, but a grandma on the street who just donated 10 Canadian dollars just to support the cause of people standing in the street or the truckers, also got her bank account clipped or stopped. And that is what woke up that person to say, but I'm not even the one protesting. In fact, it's funny. I've just posted a clip on my LinkedIn. It's a 2.5 minute clip about the CBDC and this girl waking up and she has to go to work and all of that stuff. And they use, yeah, and they use other citizens against you, because if you're frustrated with the system and you say something, somebody else is noting it and they're getting a $50 credit in the CBDC to report you, which they also did during COVID. And this is what I'm saying is the majority needs to start waking up, because they'll use the majority brainwash against the minority who are actually trying to save the majority from walking into trouble. But unfortunately, it's human beings, man. And the whole point is, the way I see it is, as you said, it is the majority who go along are the ones who are going to get the most hurt. There is going to be a lot of death and destruction, but because I believe we're going to World War III starting majorly next year. But humanity survives at the other end of this. And hey, maybe it is the smart part of humanity that survives. I'm not saying anyone should die, but I'm just saying if after taking 5 COVID shots, you're still getting COVID or you're still falling sick, maybe you should not take the sixth booster. Because wasn't it Einstein who said, doing the same thing, repeating the same thing again and again, but expecting a different result is actually stupidity. But hey, it's humanity. I want to actually now focus on the solution, because I know you guys have come up with a solution. And I think you presented even something at the Horasis Global Meeting 2025 in Sao Paulo, Brazil. What do you see as the future? And I'll just leave the floor to you. Just explain the solution you guys are coming up with.
Yeah, so what we do at AGA or GAU, so it's a token backed by silver and a token backed by gold, is essentially using neutral gold as neutral money, and using the blockchain as a neutral settlement system. It's very simple. We're offering this to corporates as of now, and I think there is a big need, because today a corporation wants to trade with all countries, because of the supply chains, and because of and so using the blockchain for settlement is one of the most efficient ways to do it nowadays. But then comes the problem of what do you use as a vehicle, and I think people have come to the realization that gold is the only form of money that is preserved through time. Any other fiat currencies, even the best of them, have lost their value more than 90%. So so when you look at the being unit of account, medium of exchange, and store of value, fiat money has failed massively at being a store of value. It is anything but that. And so corporations and treasuries will in the future use this system more and more in order to just just continue doing what they do best, which is providing services and solutions and goods to the vast majority of people. And in the coming months, we will be deploying on public mainnet, so in public blockchains this time, to also offer the solution for retail and for the vast majority of people with an alternative to what already exists today, because what already exists today is badly constructed in our view. It is constructed with layers of centralization, and it's constructed with layers of counterparty risk, and it's not constructed in a fair way when it comes to who benefits from those systems. So that's pretty much where we stand. We will be in Brazil because as you know now, the real trade of goods and commerce, real commerce, is now being conducted in the BRICS nations. Um, and so I was invited, and I will be talking about what would provide as a solution, what our vision is in as the world is moving away from fiat money, either way, so that you have like a third alternative that is not the renminbi, that is not the dollar, but simply a non-aligned um, form of payment that can be open for both and can be open for everybody, rather than being subject um, to constraints from any decision maker.
So I just want to go a bit deeper on that. So the AGAU token, obviously, one's backed by gold, one's backed by silver. So instead of me transferring gold to someone overseas, I'm just transferring the token, and the actual gold and silver sits in vaults in Switzerland. Is that correct?
Correct.
And how is the value of that token determined? Obviously, if gold moves up and silver moves
So
down.
one token equals 1 gram. So we, as of now, we only, for economies of scale and for efficiency, we only hold 1 kg bars for gold and silver. But for gold, we also have 400 ounces, and for silver, we have 1,000 ounces. But the token represents, it's a fungible token. The token represents a fraction of a bar. Essentially, it follows 1 gram of LBMA. So essentially, if you have 1,000 tokens of gold, you can withdraw a bar of gold. But what you're really transferring is 1 gram of gold. Now, no matter what the price of that 1 gram does, it's mostly the factor of how much fiat money depreciates, and the more fiat depreciate, the more the nominal price of gold goes
And
up.
that's the one difference. The reason I asked you that is the one difference. As fiat goes down, gold is and silver are going up right now. But as you said, Bitcoin is volatile as well. In your case, you are not a token is not a dollar value. Because this is what I keep highlighting to people. An ounce is an ounce is an ounce. In your case, a token is a gram. And in a kilo basket, you got your 1,000 grams, and that those are your 1,000 tokens. If you hold those 1,000 tokens, and if you don't want to spend it, they're going up in value, but you own a kg or 1,000 ounces or whatever it is. It's an actual physical number.
So you opt out of the fiat system and the accounting. You're basically just holding, uh, you know, physical, the ownership of physical bars, and we use the private property laws of Switzerland, which historically have brought good people and bad people to store their gold here, simply because the confiscation is extremely hard, and it would have to be a referendum essentially to confiscate. Not uh, un- unlike the other countries where confiscation can be done by a couple of people or hundreds of people in parliament to just confiscate without asking anybody anything.
Yeah.
So so yeah, I think it is the safe harbor here to have private property and to democratize that system to the entire world. And by trial and error, I think people will be making the right choices, and by voting with their wallet this time, maybe others will listen because that's the language they understand.
Yeah, there's something out there. Have you guys? I read somewhere. Have you guys actually got institutional proof there was a $5 billion transaction completed, or is that something that is going to be shown to be
So,
completed?
so we've conducted. Well, first of all, we are working. I cannot mention name, but we're working with central banks in different countries, and we're also working with corporations, and we've conducted several tests. So the scalability of the system has now been proven with basically the minting and unminting of more than 5 billion. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now, this concept is also something. It's a private example, but with the BRICS coming about, and the concept is if we go into an east and a west split, what the BRICS countries are trying to do is they'll still trade in their own currencies, and the net difference will be settled in gold because China's trying to set up walls in Russia and I think in Dubai and even in Singapore as a hub. So they want to settle in gold, but they still want to conduct the transaction in their own currencies, which are debasing, and they can create as many. So, do you think central banks would be incentivized to actually use the token? I'm not sure about the central banks and the governments. I still think institutional.
I can't comment on it, and I cannot know what's going to happen in the future. But what I can say is that the idea of settling in gold is a better idea than settling in only dollars, in my opinion. So already there, I think it is a better system. You sometimes you have to pick the lesser of both evils. The only issue there is the issue of confidence. Is do you actually trust your other partners to hold your gold? First of all, where do you hold the gold? Okay, and how do you make it so that um, the debasement of the other currency is reflected correctly, right? Because it's kind of like a game theory at some point. So, look, we are mainly a private sector initiative. Okay, we can collaborate with others and help them to construct their own local solutions. But for us, our vision is to just have it in a neutral place, right, which is Switzerland, and then enable anybody, left and right or sideways, to participate. Right. That's the way we want to construct our system. Um, at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of issues that both the BRICS and the others are going to run. But if I were to choose, I would rather still choose the gold back standard, which is the natural thing to do, um, because the countries and the people will be better off. And eventually, all what's going to happen is that, well, if I am transacting, like you say, in my own local currency, it is a matter of competing currencies. And so what would people naturally end up doing is, well, why don't I just shortcut the thing and go directly to gold? Why would I just hold the thing that goes down? And I think it is the case today. I mean, even in the financial markets, it is the case today. So it's not going to take too long for people to realize that this system is just coming to an end.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the faster the inflation gets, the more people are realizing there is no more COVID, but still there's a lot of inflation in most countries, right? Hey, what could happen out there that would make you reconsider, just a random question, make you reconsider your thesis?
Oh, well, quite frankly, I think governments starting doing the right thing. And today, for example, I've emailed people at the Swiss National Bank to say, hey, maybe you want to consider backing the Swiss francs by gold, and we can help. Other governments are thinking about that too. So I think, some miracles can happen, um, but aliens can come and say, "Hey, look, it was all slavery with extra steps." I don't know. Um, we don't know what we don't know, right? I just think that under the current circumstances, we're doing the right thing.
I think you're definitely doing the right thing, and that's why I brought you on this channel to actually, because not many people might have known about this. So obviously, our audience can not only learn about your business but also spread the message that their private people can actually store tokens. And again, it's a gram. It's nothing to do with fiat currency because it's not going to move up and down. It is you own a gram, the physical amount. And miracles happening, I don't think with the government you cannot expect miracles because they've had long-term plans, and I think the system has to collapse for then there will be renaissance at the other end, and then people will wake up. And I think there was also a saying by, I don't know which economist or somebody in America, who said America always does the right thing, but after they've exhausted all of the other options. And in America, I think there's quite a few states who are talking about or have even signed legislation to legalize gold. Obviously, it's in their constitution as well. So they know the system is coming to an end and they want their citizens to be able to at least buy food and pay for necessities with gold and silver because the system's collapsing. And countries in Venezuela have done that.
It's true, but they have a precedent of confiscation. That's the thing, is when you've been lied to once, it's hard to establish the trust again. Look, at the end of the day, the way I see it is that today betting in gold and silver is betting on the government and central banks doing the wrong thing. And I think that's a pretty good proposition because you have to turn these things into an opportunity. If you know that some things are wrong, do you find a way to bet on it? And our bet is that stable coins backed by USD will fail. Okay, that is our bet. Our bet is that you know some of the Bitcoin holders or the shitcoin holders will be tired of playing the volatility game and will want to find a refuge that is back to the principles that they believe in, right? That's our bet. And our bet, most of all, is that fiat currencies will continue to be debased at a faster and faster pace. So I think it's still early because, like you say, you either subject today to hyperinflation or you're subject to hyperinflation in slow motion. But either way, you will be suffering from this. As far as the eye can see, this is a pretty safe bet to have, and so therefore we are confident that our marketing strategy, for the most part, will be the stupidity of central bankers and the stupidity of the system.
Exactly. You're betting on the system collapsing on itself, and that is how you benefit. If you can't change the system, at least you could benefit from it. It's just a common sense thing. All right, we kind of end these uh, great discussions with a quick fire round. I might know some of your answers on this, but I'm just going to pit one against the other to see which one you pick. I might know the answer to some of these. Bitcoin or gold?
Gold.
Now, because you have AG and AU, I'm going to ask you gold or silver.
Personally, silver.
Oh, wonderful. Stable coins or cash? Physical cash.
Neither.
If you had to pick one, stable coins or cash or CBDC? Obviously, we know you're not going to pick CBDC.
You would have to put a gun to my head, but I guess it will be physical cash then.
At
But
least it's something, right?
I still disagree.
Yeah, not fair enough. We don't want to put a gun to your head, man. It's just a fun yes or no. Because obviously, when we push someone to the edge, you've got to pick one. It's just saying which one's safer than the other one. That's all we're trying to get to.
I think the real answer is to stand by your principles and pick none.
Pick none. Okay. Okay. You think AI good or bad?
Both.
Explain.
Good.
Mainly good, you think? If used properly, obviously.
We need to use the tool for good, and if it doesn't, it's our fault.
Yeah. I agree. Like we've had gold and silver around forever. If you use it for good, it can be used. But the central banks are the ones who are hoarding the gold, and they tell us to use the paper, toilet paper currency. Anyways, hey, coming to an end now. This is just some fun questions, just for our audience to understand Thierry as a person. What books or book would you is your favorite, and you recommend to most of your friends?
I mean, besides the theological books of all major religions, whatever helps you find God, such as the Bible or else, I think those are pretty good books. But besides those, I like Principles from Ray Dalio. I think that is a good guidance for life and work. I like The Hero with a Thousand Faces. I like the Odyssey and all the mythological books that can bring you principles basically in life. So anything that will increase your level of spirituality, intuition, and criteria into making good decisions, I think that would be the books I would recommend.
Okay. If you weren't in finance or banking and money, where do you think you would have been?
I would be meditating somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, you seem like you like the spirituality. So I meditate as well. It does help me just calm my mind. Hey, what's your favorite funny story to tell people, Thierry? Have you had some? This is a family friendly show, Thierry. So I'm just joking.
I don't know if there's I don't know if it's really funny, but I don't know if you know the story about the frog and the uh and the Scorpio,
No, please tell us.
where a Scorpio and a frog are in one side of the river, and the Scorpio asks the frog, "Can I hop on your back to cross the river?" And the frog says no, because then you're gonna sting me, and the Scorpio says no, because if I sting you, then we're both gonna die, and we're both drawn. And so after some convincing, the frog decides to take the Scorpio on his back. And then as they reach the middle of the river, um, the Scorpio stings the frog, and then the frog in disarray asks, like, why did you do that? Now we're both gonna die. And the Scorpio says, because I'm a Scorpio and that's what I do. um, so I think the moral of the story is that you know, some people will never change, and so that it is about having criteria and placing your trust in reason, in hope certainly, but also in reason, into having the right people. um, and sometimes it's better to not do anything rather to make a mistake.
Fair enough. Have you the best advice you've received from someone?
Honestly, I would say this: find the best people you know in their own field, and that could be your mentors, and ask them the best questions you can.
Okay.
Yeah, learn from the best people that you actually want to be like, and surround yourself by them.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that. Hey, I end my conversations with this. Obviously, I have a financial consultancy called Success Simplified. So, how do you define success?
Uh, I think success is bliss. Whatever makes you um, happy with your life, that is success.
Fair enough. Hey, and thanks. You've been great with your time. Where can listeners find out more about you?
No, thank you, and Farzan, it's an honor. Thank you very much. I really appreciate this.
Now, I said, where can listeners find out more about you?
I'm in social media, on X, Thierry Aris. I'm on Instagram, but I do not post a lot. I'm on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn. So the serious stuff I would put on X and on LinkedIn.
Okay, I'll put the links down in the show notes. Hey, and have I forgotten anything that you like to bring to audiences notice or attention at all?
Yeah, I would just say stay curious.
Stay curious, my friend. I love that. Hey, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Farzan.